Greetings everyone, I'm Mar. Once again, this is my opinion. As you can tell from the title up there, I'm continuing my trek through the Undertaker's Wrestlemania matches. And here we are at Wrestlemania 36 from 2020. The only Mania so far to have no fans in attendance, and that was because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Which, of course, made them have to do a lot of changes for this, both for this Mania and some of the following ones, because originally the Mania after this was going to be the one that was at SoFi Stadium, but then that did not happen until 2023, which was the Mania that I went to, which, considering that was around the time my grandmother passed away, that was a good event to help take all that stuff off my mind, especially since I just moved. So, here we go. Now, like I said, 2 years since Taker's previous match. And just reading through the background of this and then watching how they do it, it does kind of seem a little random how they put it in here. But for the end result match, I'd say it works. Because like I said at the end of the previous video, this is Taker's one and only match with AJ Styles, and it is a cinematic style match, which really does fit with how late in his career it is and just how it's set up. Now, the genesis is at Super Showdown, AJ Styles was a participant in the Mountain Trophy Gauntlet match. Now, his other final participant was going to be Rey Mysterio, who was ambushed backstage by Styles' OC cohorts, Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson. And, of course, Styles was like, "I'm the winner," trying to take the win by forfeit. Now, the ref gave Mysterio to the count of 10 to get down there. Now, while they were doing this, the camera cuts backstage and it shows Gallows and Anderson getting beat up by Undertaker. He makes a surprise return, performs a choke slam on Styles to win the match and the trophy. Now, of course, Styles is not happy at this. He's mocking the Undertaker for still wrestling. He issues a warning. Taker then appears at an elimination chamber and costs Styles his match with Aleister Black. Styles continues his taunting and, of course, brings up the fact that Taker is married to former diva and women's wrestler Michelle McCool in real life, blaming her for why Taker keeps coming back. And of course also calling Undertaker by his real name, Mark Calloway, which they hadn't done in quite a while. If memory serves, the last time they really were calling Taker by his real name was when he was the American Badass. And doing this, Styles challenges Taker to a match at WrestleMania. And of course they sign it, and Styles challenges him to a Boneyard match. And during this, Taker accepts cutting a promo. And from this, you can see he is returning to a quasi-American Badass one. The reason I say that is because when he was the American Badass, he really didn't do that much supernatural crap. Other than, having the little girl chant stuff, that's about it in his entrance videos. But as this match goes on, there's going to be a couple moments where he really gets into it. Now, the match, Dunn does shoot this pretty well. And of course, AJ and his cronies show up first. It makes it look like it's going to be Undertaker because it's the hearse and they're playing his theme, but then they pull the coffin out of the back of the hearse and AJ's in there. He gets out and they start playing his match. He gets into the graveyard and he's like, "Oh, I can hear him," and you hear the sound of a motorcycle in the distance. And it cuts to the back roads leading up to the cemetery because it takes place in a cemetery, hence called a boneyard. And you see Taker riding in on his motorcycle. Now, considering in the past what WWE has done to a lot of their videos when they've used popular music, I was expecting the song that they play over here to be dubbed over by this point on the network, especially considering they've used Metallica in the past for entrances, and then they dubbed over with the generic sound alike. Well, color me pleasant surprised when Metallica's "Now That We're Dead" was still on here. Think about this. This is 5 years later. Over 5 years later, and it's still on there. So I guess whatever kind of deal they made for it, since it was going to streaming, it'd be on there in perpetuity? It'd be perpetually on there. I'm trying to say the word right. I'll say good, because if they put a generic sounder along or something to try to get along, it would kill this moment. It has to be "Now That We're Dead." Of course, Undertaker rolls on in, they stare each other down, and the match begins. Early on, Taker gets the early lead, partially to prove a point to AJ Styles, especially since AJ's mocking him like, your wife know you're out this late? You know, if you watched any of American Badass Taker's matches, especially when he was a heel, or even when he was a face, or even as a face when he's fighting someone who's being disrespectful and has the big advantage over him, the type of trash talk he's doing here sounds familiar, and it was nice to see him doing that, especially since he calls AJ by his real name, Alan, and AJ is trying to get away. He's like, what are you saying about my wife? Of course, he keeps going, and my favorite part of this early bit on is that Taker slams AJ through the window of the front of the hearse. So it's like, oh yeah, whoop his ass. Yeah, kick his ass, Taker. Now, given that AJ and his cohorts are a heel, it's no surprise that eventually Gallows and Anderson try to assist, but Taker easily fights them off. And then the Druids appear, and they're on AJ's side. So Taker fights them off. And then during this, Styles gets a shovel and breaks it across the Undertaker's back. And this causes him to fall in the grave. Now because of this, Styles goes to get the machinery to fill the grave. And he's all operating it like, oh yeah. And this is where I mentioned that supernatural crap earlier, because Taker does his little teleportation stick, where he goes from the grave to behind AJ. And this is the moment, the way it's set up, this is the moment in the match that has launched 1,000 memes. Where we see AJ in the bottom corner, he's all laughing it up. She take behind him like... so many memes made with that over the years, and they're all still funny. It's an excellent shot. And of course, AJ turns around and Taker attacks him. They fight through the graveyard. They enter a warehouse. Of course, Styles backs off from him. He's scared in disbelief about him getting from the grave, even though by this point in Taker's career, shouldn't people know that that's kind of his shtick? When you think you've won, you start getting overconfident, he either sits up or he teleports or something. Now, of course, Undertaker raises his arms and it makes a wall of fire, so now Styles cannot run. Now, of course, the OC try another attack on Taker, and he strikes back. Gallows gets thrown off a roof. Anderson gets a tombstone performed on him, and then he choke slams Styles off the roof and through an old piece of flooring. Now, stuff like this is why this had to be cinematic. I mean, you could have kind of pulled this off live, but just cinematic would be better. And of course, Taker, he's still talking trash to AJ as he does this. He carries him over to the grave, and Styles like, please don't bury me. And Taker brings him up to his feet and embraces him. So this reminds me a little bit of when he raised Jeff Hardy's hand. You know, like, yeah, you put on a good match. He's even saying some similar stuff like, yeah, don't worry. You put on a good match. And then he turns and kicks Styles into the grave. This is Taker's version of the Spartan kick. Then that tractor that Styles was using earlier, Taker then starts it up and dumps all the dirt into the grave, burying Styles to win the match. So if you think about it, this is essentially a glorified buried alive match, just set in a cemetery, hence the different name. And it is a brawl, since it is set in it. So AJ doesn't have a lot of flippy crap to do other than selling for what Taker does to him. But for this type of match, it works, especially with the Gaga of all the area, the machinery, the Druids, the OC all attacking the weapons, and of course the spots. And Taker doesn't really take a lot of bumps in here. It's mainly AJ doing bumping, but for the few he does have to take, like of course getting hit in the back with a shovel that breaks, Taker does sell it well in here. So he was still in pretty good shape, especially considering what happened a few years prior. Now, Taker gets back on his motorcycle into Now That We're Dead, rides off into the sunset. And since this would be his final match, not only at WrestleMania but in general, I mean technically he's still around WWE, but I'm doing that because you never know. But for now, this is his final match, both in general and Mania. That puts his final WrestleMania record at 25-2. Even though this is a kayfabe sport, that's not a bad record overall. Technically, I think it should have been 26-1, but 25-2 to end his 27 WrestleMania matches is not a bad thing. And to end it on this match, this is definitely one that I was looking forward to rewatching, and it is still just as fun to watch. Now, if they had created a cinematic match style earlier, they probably could have gotten a lot more better matches out of Taker with some of those years, especially with him and Bray Wyatt. Oh my goodness. The kind of cinematic match those two could have had instead of a normal match. But alas, it is what it is. This is a pretty good match, like I said, for Taker to go out on. And with this match, we come to the end of me talking about the Undertaker streak. Or is it? Because the way I look at it, I think I should do one more video on this, and that is going over which ones I think are the 5 best matches and which I think are the 5 worst matches. Now, of course, it goes without saying what's going to be on the worst one, because you can't really do a worst without it. But that will be next time, everybody. Until then.